The Uganda we want. So mu Uganda gye twagala mu lutalo luno olw'okulwanyisa obulabbayo obukenuzi nze kyempita obuvundu. Munnayuganda alina okuba nga yeenyigiramu.
Ffenna twenyigire mu lutalo.
Mbaaniriza mu program Uganda gye twagala, the Uganda we want. Ndi musanyufu nnyo kubanga ndi wamu nammwe mu kaseera kano ke tugenda okukozesa nga tubaako ensonga enkulu ze twogera. Jjukira nti tubuuza ekibuuzo wano mu programu eno nti enkola y'emirimu mu gavumenti n'obuvunaanyizibwa bwo bikuwa ekifaananyi kya Uganda gye twagala. Ekibuuzo ekyo abantu wano benkyaza mu programu eno the Uganda we want nga bwe boogera naawe beera nga weebuuza ne mu byonna omugenyi ono byayogedde olwaleero ki kyennyinza okukola nga ggwe munnayuganda tube nga tutuuka ku Uganda gye twagala. Ate we kijja gy'oli gwe ali mu gavumenti munnange gwe Mukama yakuwa omukisa, wafuna ogulimu ogutuddemu, oli mu yafeesi erimu ne zi SC, gwe munnange otusukulumyeko kiki ky'okola okulaba nga naawe otuyamba okutuuka ku Uganda gye twagala. Kubanga bw'obanga olikola kituzza mabega, essaala tugirina era tugisaba. Mukama akutuggirewo ffe nga tetunnakugjawo, ajja kuba akututaasizzaako. Kale nno twetaaga ffenna okubaako kye tukola okulaba nga tutuuka ku Uganda gye twagala. Lwako olwaleero tuli wamu ono munoonyereza. He's a researcher and he's as well a lecturer. Ate era nga emirimu gye bino bye tugamba kati bakuguse mu kunoonyereza ku ddaala ery'obukenkufu ery'obukenkufu anaatera okuba nga nabyo abikuba olukuku mutwe. Tusanyuse nnyo mwami Tayebwa okuba nga okkiriza. Manyi bw'oyogera Tayebwa ebiseera ebisinga badduka eri ewa deputy, naye kale tujja kutambulira awo. Tuli wamu naye olunaku olwaleero agenda kusiigira ekifaananyi kya Uganda gye twagala okulaba naddala ku kigenda maaso eky'emmwanyi. Kansooke musabe akubuuzeeko era ye mu kunoonyereza kwe leero twagala kumanya mu byanoonyereza biki ebigenda okuyamba emmwanyi eno Uganda eky'obugagga eky'obulimi kyerina okulaba nga tukikwata bulungi olwo munnayuganda abe nga yeeyagala. Tujja kukozesa ennimi bbiri just in case okuba nga tewali n'omu asigala mabega. Omanyi bano abakutukulembera baagala nnyo oluzungu. It is because they said it in Uganda, so I didn't get it clearly. So tujja kuba tukozesa ennimi ezo bbiri waleme okubaawo n'omu agamba nti nze saategedde. Just join me and we welcome him today on the program The Uganda We Want. Could you please greet our viewers and our listeners?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, my friend Mnazi, for giving us the opportunity to have this conversation. And of course, I have to relay my greetings and appreciations to the dear viewers who pay attention to this program or listen in to the several programs this the TV station relays. We are very honored and grateful to have you as viewers, and we hope that we'll do this conversation a justice in trying to share our views and perspectives in as far as this conversation is concerned.
Yeah, it's been a while. How are you? How are things?
I'm okay. We are out there in our town. We're trying to hustle and bustle and make life possible.
Hope you spare some time to do concrete research for us. You know, when you say you're hustling, sometimes it's more of looking at yourself, and probably might forget the Ugandans.
Basically, part of the work we do is to look through the conversations, to try to listen in and understand what exactly is going on. So in as much as we are trying to survive, to put food on our tables, but we're also trying to make a contribution to to the growth of our government or our economy, and trying to put a brick to the project called Uganda.
Yeah, it's so good to have you. I think on the 1st of November, I landed on one of your recent articles that was published in the Daily Monitor.
Okay.
Daily Monitor is, I think, the one of the biggest private newspapers now in our country now. So it's really very big, and if something pops up there, if you're a reader, your attention has to be hooked right away. And I landed on this article. Could UCDA's rationalization be a strategic maneuver or a misstep? A misstep. So my mind was so bubbled. I was like, I know this person. I know who wrote this article. And then, of course, when you said you have the time to come and talk to us about this, there are some facts that you put in. But I just want, as we are going to talk about this rationalization issue that is going on and the issue of UCDA, there is something I wanted to share with you first. And these are statistics from a New Vision.
Yeah.
On October 30th, Mr. Honorable Obua, he said Uganda government's position on coffee bill still stands.
Yeah.
And one of the facts that New Vision gave us was Uganda is currently one of Africa's top coffee exporters, with revenue earnings rising from $883.3 million US. I think that's around 26 Ugandan 3.26 trillion Ugandan shillings to 952.24 million US million. That is from November 2021 to October 2022. And they say that Uganda recorded its highest coffee exports of 6.26 million tons of 60 kg bags in 2021-2022 from 5.83 as the records are. And of course, they are saying that to achieve what I have just shared, UCDA has distributed close to 545,470, 54, close to 54 coffee seedlings and over 54 coffee seedlings in the last 5 years, and benefiting close to 937,605 farmers, which is really a big impact in line with that. Now where we are, as I read through your article, and I'm going to hear from you now, probably they might have misspelled something, or might have written, they might have put some error somewhere. I'm like, I have you, the man. I've heard Dr. Ezra Sruma talking about the same thing. It seems we have two groups now. One group says, which I think where you belong, it says we shouldn't, allow UCDA to be under the Ministry of Agriculture. And the minister the other day also wrote an article saying, no, please, you should trust us. Please bring it back, the way he was, talking about it. The president says, no, UCDA must go. The MPs from these coffee growing regions, they are saying no. And the farmers are saying no. Mr. Tayebwa, we are confused.
Actually, it's out of that confusion that I started listening in the different views. We have a government which has different arms. The decision to take that agency back to the ministry was voted on by the legislative arm of government. And of course, this idea was engineered by the government, because the government has been in the process of trying to scale down on excesses. Because as we speak, I think the government has about 180 government agencies in form of authorities, in form of boards, the form of agencies.
Agencies, yes.
Okay, so and all of these come from different government ministries. So there has been a conversation. Why do we have ministries, and then we have these so many agencies which are running parallel programs? But then another conversation or another debate ensued. They started saying, let's look at these agencies that are productive, that are commercially viable. You know of some agencies like National Water. You know, another agency, I think it is called, I'll get to it. Yeah, like NEMA. There's another one that is commercially viable, including NSSF. They are making money that the government has looked into them, and they realize that they shouldn't be pushed back to ministries. They should be streamlined in terms of their operations, and they be maintained. But some, those that are not making profit, should be taken back to line ministries.
In other words, they are sucking the government.
Yes,
they are parasites.
They are taking a lot of money from the government, but they are not making a sizable contribution to national development. So that's the genesis of this conversation of rationalization. But then, now we get to something called UCDA. You have read the statistics. You know the contribution this agency makes to the national coffers from the different angles. The direct money through the exports of coffee and the other auxiliary services that are attached to coffee, the coffee sector. They do research. They do research. They do extension services. They support farmers directly in helping them to know how to do, to produce good coffee, good quality coffee. So they have been doing a lot of extensive work in support of the sector. So, and of course, it works directly with farmers. You look at the statistics on how many farmers are directly linked to this coffee sector. People who make a living. I want to believe that if you are to do a survey like here in Uganda, most of the people that you see are thriving economically. These professors from the Uganda area, most of them have been to school through money generated from coffee. Okay? And you see, this triggers a direct interest because these are people who are benefiting directly. So a government comes in with an idea that let's take this agency back to the line ministry. The ministry itself has its own baggage. It has so many agencies, sub-agencies, sub-departments and sectors that they are managing. And one thing I should also know that in as much as UCD has been a standalone, but it is supervised by the same Ministry of Agriculture. Okay? In as much as they want to take it back. But as we stand, given its autonomy, some element of semi-autonomy, but it still falls under the Ministry of Agriculture. So the genesis or the basis through which I came up with that article you're talking about is the conversation that ensued. The executive has the responsibility of coming out, taking decisions. And for your information, it's the same government that crafted an idea that we should come up with these agencies. So it also has a responsibility, if it is not commercially viable, to take it back to to realign it to something that it so wishes. It so happens that it falls under Ministry of Agriculture. Okay, so the government is
actually
saying,
on that one, Dr. Ezra Sruma says,
Yes.
because he was part of these conversations,
yes,
he said when we proposed, he said we, meaning he was part
of government.
Yeah, when we proposed the Uganda Coffee Development Authority,
Yes,
UCDA in 1990, we provided a revenue source for it so that it would not need money from the government. So he was part of the conversations to bring up UCDA.
Definitely, yes.
And he's still alive.
Yes, and actually, when you listen to him, you realize that I read his article, And I listened in to most of the people who made comments on this particular issue.
Yes.
He raises a very pertinent issue. And when you look at his school of thought, where he comes from, he's a believer of strong governments, like a government that has control over particular sectors. You can even trace these same arguments towards the sale of the Uganda commercial bank.
Doing privatization,
yes, the privatization period. I think I'll talk about that a bit later.
Okay.
But his argument is that they had created the way of funding this agency. They are very meticulous and very clear in how this sector could thrive without undue government interferences, such that they give it space to perform its mandate. But of course, along the way, they also became a bit greedy. That they were given 1% of the revenue collections from the coffee sector exports, export revenue. Along the way, they tried to push it to 2%. You can look at the figures that we are talking about, billions of US dollars, millions of US dollars. If you take 2% of that revenue, you can easily inflate that authority. Okay, so the government realized that they were becoming greedy. They had to take that from that mandate, that allocation, back to the national coffers, and then now they were taken back to the Ministry of Finance and to fall within the similar structures of government. How they allocate,
because they're now independent, they
yes,
can make some decisions in regard to raising the cess revenue, as Dr. Zasuma calls
yes.
it. Oh, so the government, you're like, they are like coming into...
No, the sector, UCDA, tried to push for an increment. They had been given 1%. And if you read clearly that article from Dr. Suruma, he says, even if they are given 0.25% of the general...
He says, in the case of UCDA,
yes,
clearly the problem is not cost. Because with the huge growth in the coffee exports, excess of even 0.25% of exports would cover its requirements for supervision of the quality of our coffee.
Operational requirements.
0.25%.
But for them, they had pushed it to 2%, which is an anomaly, and it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay. So here you realize that the problem was internal, and it gives some perspective to what I was trying to talk about. How about the government tries to now look into the management aspect of these agencies instead of phasing most of them out, even those that are productively, that are economically viable? How about if we scale down? Actually, we emphasize management, and we try to look from inside and try to capture the problem from the source. The other day, I listened to Honorable Mao, and he made an interesting statement that in his life, actually, he made mention of his wife. She's a coffee farmer.
Beatrice.
Yes. That she has been doing all this, the farming, independently. So technically, the authority, UCDA, and the Ministry of Agriculture have been non-existent in most farmers' lives. Okay? Which is quite revealing, in as much as the statistics are quite...
alarming.
Actually, they are very rosy. You see that the performance is there, and the sector has really done so well. But the availability of these agencies is in question. The extent that they are saying, yes, we have achieved all this, but on the ground we are not so much felt. I think that's what Honorable Mao was trying to communicate. So the question is, instead of now rushing to say, let's push you back to something that is also limping the ministry, why not adopt a new strategy of trying to say, let's now use a different approach of, we maintain maybe the agency, okay? But then we try to tackle these excesses that are in. If it is about management, let's address the management problems. If it is about excessive spending, if it's about corruption, let's try to tackle corruption from within. But let's not push back this would be good thing, which also has registered quite an immense success, into something that is equally dysfunctional. Okay, but of course, why the Ministry of Agriculture is emphatic and actually very appetitive in trying to pull back this agency, they also see the benefits.
Oh.
Okay,
so you mean the Ministry of Agriculture is not looking at probably increasing the production of coffee, but what already UCDA has brought on the table, and they're like, we should be the one doing that.
Practically, I think it speaks that effect, and you see the noise being made by the parliamentarians, especially those who are opposed to the bill. They are speaking to that fact that look at the state or the operational mandate of the Ministry of Agriculture. Firstly, it is overstretched because of what it already has on its hands, on its plate. Why don't you concentrate on what you're eating than look into something that, in the event that is brought back to this agency, with the ministry, it will actually get overwhelmed. Okay?
Yeah. The minister
that's the argument that these members of parliament are trying to raise. Most ministries are struggling. Okay? They are not performing to the expectations. And it informs the very reason why these agencies were created.
Now, you as a researcher, I want to know something, because what you're saying, yes, the members of parliament are saying so. The other day I had one from Kasese saying, our tea, we are not, he was like, I was a good tea grower. Things came up. I had to clear my garden and put, now plant coffee. Now you have also come in. They were saying that the ministry is incompetent. The minister himself came up and said, no, we are not incompetent. As a researcher now, help us. If farmers are accusing the ministry and the minister of their incompetence, for them they are saying, we are not incompetent. Who is going to save us?
Now, I can use a number of examples. You have just talked about the the tea sector. It is struggling because of price fluctuations. In that people put in money to grow these coffees on their own land. These plants, either coffee or tea. In the story, we'll talk about sugar in the Busoga area and other areas where they are growing sugar.
Yeah, I had a Musoga there crying 2 weeks ago.
Yes. Most of these people are struggling. And all these are supervised by the same ministry. The other day, let me first finish with tea. You put your land, you clear your land, you decide to make an investment. But because you are not protected, you end up making losses. Because you're not protected. You take a decision to cut, you introduce something else, and the same problem is following you there. It doesn't stop there. Look at the sugarcane industry or sugar industry. You harvest just 1 acre. Is it 1 ton of sugarcane is not equivalent to a 50 kilogram bag of sugar. A whole ton is not equivalent, like when you are selling it as an outgrower or someone who is into sugarcane industry. You grow coffee, you grow sugarcane, you harvest the canes, a whole ton. You only get 120,000, something of that sort. Yet a bag of 50 kilograms is much bigger, is more costly. To hold more value than a whole ton of cane. Okay, so are you supporting this farmer or not? The other day, the same parliament, there was a conversation, especially now. Actually, these people of the cattle farmers, the cattle people,
cattle people, yeah,
they have had issues of foot and mouth disease especially in Tungamo, some areas of here, even here in Uganda, the cattle corridor, Nakasongora. They put their restrictions of movements of these animals. That's your source of income. They put it there for 3, 4, 5 months. That's why you get money to take your kids to school. That's why you get money for survival. But you are not selling any products. Okay? How do they expect you to survive? All these are managed by the same ministry, including this coffee. In as much as UCDA is a standalone, a semi-autonomous agency, government agency, it is supervised by the same ministry. So if you have not been able to deal with all these so many problems, how come you want to take in something that is thriving in under your supervision, and you want to also bring it into this kind of confusion?
Yeah.
Okay. But
so you have given us a very good background, especially on rationalization. Now, you know, in our last part today, how do we move forward without making a mistake?
I think that is very fundamental, and actually it is the basis of that article. As not trying to point fingers at anyone, as trying to listen in to what people are saying and trying to make sense in as far as the ways forward. Firstly, we'll understand that Uganda operates in the space of the community of nations. And for some reasons, their interests. Like for instance, we talked of how UCDA came into being. Before there were cooperatives. We had the Uganda Coffee Marketing Board and so many others. When they were phased out, that's how we came up with this thing called the UCDA. So how did we get there? There had been a policy shift that was enforced, or that was being championed by the international agencies, the IMF and the World Bank. They were gearing towards policy reforms at the end of the Cold War politics. So Russia had lost out to the US, and because now US was the global authority, they tried to engineer policy reforms through those international agencies because they are financial agencies, and they had money which most of these third world countries did not have. They needed to borrow from them and their international monetary agencies. So in the way of trying to access funding to inject into their economies, because at that time, because of that Cold War politics, most of the economies had been frustrated. So in the way of trying to revamp, they were conditioned that you have to adopt these market-led economies through the liberalization policies. So most of the governments in the third world, the global south, were forced to adopt these policy reforms. And that's how it happened. We ended up selling most of our government parastatals. We ended up adopting, you remember this government had just come to power. It was a military government. It was forced to adopt democratization, multipartyism, and a number of other reforms. That's how this thing of restructuring government agencies came into being. And the whole idea behind this was to scale down on excesses, on hefty governments, which were more of communist or socialist governments. So the capitalistic approach to doing business is that they need less or streamlined governments, which only focus on the provision of these basic services, which the individuals cannot provide for themselves, like education, though it was also later liberalized, healthcare, though it was also later liberalized, a conducive environment for everyone to thrive. But they want a market-led economy through what I know you must have heard of something called PPP, public-private partnerships. Okay, so in doing so, you are trying to make sure that governments only focus on doing things that the public, the greater citizenry cannot do for themselves. build roads, put there a policy environment that enables the private sector economy to thrive. Okay? That's how we got to the situation that we are dealing with. So when that came, we used to have those government agencies like Uganda Coffee Marketing Board. It was disbanded. But now,
in fact, dissolved.
Yeah, around that time, they realized that because of retrenchment, the government had lost most of its staff through that same policy reform. So they realized that they had no capacity to do what the Uganda Coffee Marketing Board was doing under the ministry. So that's how they ended up creating this agency called Uganda Coffee Development Authority. And we had very able people who tried to envision the future, and they put there some clauses that would protect it and actually enable it to perform its mandate. Now that it was created and has done its work, of course with challenges with standing, okay? We have come to a time when the government thinks that it should be rationalized, should be taken back to the line ministry. And the question now that I've been posing to myself, and the same as other people, the analysts that have been speaking about the same issue, is why the coffee sector? Because it is very dear to people's lives. So many people depend on it for survival. Okay? So if you take it back, there's a likelihood that we might retract the progress, or we might step on the progress that we have already registered, and even slide back. Okay? But now the executive is stepping its foot and saying, look here, it's the same government that created this agency. It's the same government that has been supervising you as an agency. So we think we know what we are doing. So we have the right, and we are sober enough to take the right decisions.
Yeah,
okay.
I think some of those words were even said in President Museveni's
exactly
letter.
Exactly. Yeah, but we are not so short of I think I mentioned that even in my article, of examples. We have had situations where the head of state has come out boldly and accepted that he was misled with some decisions. So my point that I was trying to raise there is that amidst all that, even when the government might have the capacity to plan properly and know what exactly it is doing, and could be formed by a particular interest, whatever it is, but it also can make a mistake. They might be pushed to the wall, or because someone has come up with an idea. Some ideas can be wrong. I mean, you are a man. You have made some decisions that you later regretted. So even the government can make mistakes in its projections and hopes. Okay, you might see it, make a good calculation. You think things will work out in this order, but somehow things don't work as planned. Yeah. So that's why most of these people are saying, please try to tread carefully. Let's not regress. Let's not abuse the small progress that we have registered. How about if we try to approach this from a more consultative, a process that is that considers a multitude of different options for them to come up to this position. And I think it would be the most viable approach, other than taking a hasty decision. Because you see, these people who are opposed to the whole idea, they have a point. Okay? In as much as the government is trying to rubbish it off, they have a point. The statistics speak for themselves. The progress that has been registered can speak to that effect. And I don't think this agency has been very unserious or very unprofessional in handling this matter. In as much as there are some excesses, like any other government department, including the ministries that they would want such agencies to go back to. They also have their own baggage. So instead of rushing to taking such hasty decisions, how about we now look back into the operations of government, try to create a new approach to managing government departments. We can take examples of the agencies that are making business and are registering progress. Of course, UCD has been one of them, but even when we think maybe it is not performing as to the expectations, can't we look within and try to capture the problem that is within the agency than taking it into something that is equally dysfunctional?
Some people are praising the Ministry of Works and Transport. What are they doing? How did they do it? And the minister is still there.
I think actually the example I wanted to give was UNRA, Uganda National Roads Authority. It has also registered progress. Now you can see the Ministry of Transport, Works and Transport is trying to claim the credit.
Bring UNRA.
It's also trying to bring UNRA into the fold, to like the same with UCDA. And the question is, in as much as the point they're raising is legitimate, that they are excesses. First of all, the way business is handled within those agencies leaves a lot to question. Okay, there's a lot of abuse, corruption, but can't we address the challenges and try to streamline the operations of these agencies other than rushing to phase them out and put them under something that is equally dysfunctional?
Yeah, in your article, you're saying here that while rationalization promises cost savings, merging UCDA risks damaging Uganda's coffee sector. I think you're firm on that. And then you're giving an alternative approach. One of the alternative approach you're giving us, when you say could include cost sharing measures across agencies and stronger oversight for UCDA to address accountability concerns without compromising its focus. How possible is this?
It all starts and ends with governance. And I think that back stops in the State House. The president has a duty, because he's the head of the executive, to ensure that these agencies are operational. We can do benchmarks. I know you must have heard of the story of Singapore under Lee Kuan Yew. We have just an immediate neighbor in the south, Rwanda. If you look at almost all development indices, performance indicators, you find that Rwanda is ranking high in Africa, in most of the Africa, like among the African governments, and it is actually performing well globally because they have tried to streamline their management portfolio. They have, if they give you responsibility, you must make sure that you are accountable. You have scorecards that you must work towards achieving, and you are examined, like performance appraisals. You are examined, or you are actually renewal of your contract as a minister or as an executive officer is based on how you have scored against your scorecard. Okay, so can we introduce such mechanisms within the operations of our government agencies? And of course, one of the biggest query within these ministries versus agencies are the discrepancies in terms of pay. You find that a CEO of an agency is paid like times 10.
Yeah, of the line, one in the line ministry or something.
Like they are called what? The cabinets, they are permanent secretaries.
The PS.
Who supervises these agencies is paid much less. This person who is heading this agency. So the first area of conflict is around
with the pay, the salary.
How about you harmonize them? Okay,
it's one area that the government should focus on.
Okay.
Okay? Because the moment they say, let's push them back, some people will lose jobs, which is also not very good for the economy. Okay? So how about we start with harmonization of salaries and pay and benefits? Because it is demoralizing for someone to be supervising you to be getting much less pay compared to someone who is heading an agency or an authority.
Yeah.
And they are paid much, much better
So,
fees.
are you trying to tell me that, because you've brought in the issue of policy shift?
Yes.
I've had people praising our country for coming up with good policies.
Yeah.
And others are saying we have good policies, but implementers are not there, and so on. But the way I've heard you say on this issue of rationalization,
Yeah.
and you're saying that we need a policy shift, does that mean our policymakers are shallow?
Not at all. But I think they are just disingenuine. They are not very true to themselves. Because when these ideas were being proposed to us, they were speaking to government in as much as they were speaking to the private sector. And the idea was that government should now start looking at public management from a business perspective. And that's how some of these agencies like National Water, like I mentioned it, I'm just forgetting.
UNRWA?
Not UNRWA, those that are making money.
Oh, yeah.
Like NSSF.
NSSF.
They are thriving. They are making money, they are for the government, and they are enterprising. Okay? So how about we take that approach? We ensure that we put their stricter rules or terms of engagement and make it hard for people to take advantage of these agencies and abuse them. Okay? And ensure they are serving the public good. Okay? I think that's where the problem is. And it starts and ends with one of the cardinal laws of a government under a capitalistic arrangement is ensuring that there are clear controls. Clear controls that governs the operations of the government agencies, but also the private sector. Okay? And I think that's where our government falls short. With all fairness. The way we approach public service, the way we approach service delivery, leaves a lot to wonder. Like if someone was paying attention to details, you would really, you would wonder actually. I think there is a lot that needs to be done by this government. If the proponents of this whole idea of rationalization started with the idea of let's try to streamline the operations of government, make sure that even if this UCD goes back to government, there will be accountability, there will be value for money, I would give it 100% approval. But look at the state of affairs. The ministry is limping. The authority is limping. But you want to merge the authority back to the ministry. And that's one of the areas I find a problem with in the way our public services operates and generally government structures. We have a problem as government of shooting first and then aiming later.
Oh, instead of aiming and then shoot.
Exactly.
We shoot and then aim.
You should plan. You should plan. Why are we rationalizing first?
That's the first question to ask.
Exactly. Why are we rationalizing? We need to cut out excesses. And then what? Okay? If this government was serious, it should be focused on the planning aspect and try to ensure that they follow through these plans. Okay? Because it will be the same song we have been crying under UNRWA, under UCD. you take it to the
ministry,
you are going to bury it, and the sector will crumble. But if you start with planning and ensure that you have put in place clear strategies and frameworks to ensure that the sector will thrive and be operational and actually even outperform what the authority has been doing, then why would we be opposed? But you see, what the problem is that now they are held suspect. First of all, the government is not very clear of what it wants to do.
Yeah, because the president wrote and he said the bill was already in parliament.
Yes.
Noise has already been made about the bill. MPs are saying we are not allowing it to be read the second time. And then President wrote and he said we are going to sit and discuss. And now, what he's going to...
That's what I'm telling you. You shoot first and then you are aiming.
Yeah.
And there you leave room for suspicion. That's why this whole thing is suspected. People are not sure of what's going on.
Oh, is it right to say, Mr. Bamwenda, that there could be some politics around that, probably looking for the next election? Is that true?
Now, even before we talk about elections, you remember about 2-3 years ago?
Yeah.
When the president publicly announced that they would... was the president? But the president actually made a clear mention that those who are looking for a Mr. Pinetti.
Yes, I am here. He was at Kololo. He was at Kololo, yes.
So you can imagine. Now, the Pinetti issue is not completely out of the public domain. Now they are trying to confiscate these agents. So don't you think there is a likelihood that they are sending it back into the ministry for...
Pinetti is using another
and
route.
That speaks to the international forces that we are talking about. International interests. And they have the capacity to frustrate governments. They can do anything to frustrate presidents. Okay? It is as simple.
Yeah. Mr. Tayebwa, just in a minute, summarize for us, for you, what you think should be done to make sure that our coffee sector is not politicized, our coffee sector benefits and impacts the life of me, Mulanzi, a Ugandan.
I think the government needs to listen to people, what they are saying. Not every person who is speaking about coffee is politicizing it or is trying to look for a political gain from it. Okay. Coffee is a national crop. It has made life for so many families. People have lived, have had education, have made wealth, have married wives, have had children through that crop. So when you are approaching a decision of this nature that affects a day-to-day life of a Ugandan like yourself, who could have lived your life through that crop, you need to be a bit moderate in your approach. You don't blow in people's faces. Okay? You need to be measured and know that it can easily trigger emotions. Even if you have a particular interest, articulate it out in clear terms such that nobody holds you suspect. Okay. Otherwise, you see this whole conversation is building up on lack of clarity.
Lack of clarity.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Mr. Tayebwa Bamwenda, for coming today and share with us the kind of Uganda that you want to see. Over to you, government. There is a philosopher and an apostle. He's in the Bible, Apostle Paul. He went to the Galatians and he asked them a very big question. Who bewitched you? And that is my very question to you people, to you government workers who are supposed to handle this coffee sector. In whatever is going on, who bewitched you? Ani yabaloga okubanga temusobola kuwuliriza omulimi we mmwanyi kyagamba. Ani yabaloga?